Day one, Focus ST rebuild. Here we go. I just want to let you guys know I'm not a certified mechanic or anything. I am a journeyman electrician. I'm in construction. I rebuilt a twin turbo Mustang in this very garage once, so I've got a little bit of experience, but I'm going to do my best to make this as fun and informative as I can. We're going to get the hood off. We're going to start digging deeper into what all the fire touched and see how good or bad the situation is. So let's find out. Okay, so of course got the thing unbolted and forgot, oh yeah, there's windshield wiper fluid. So we're gonna rip this thing off. It's all burnt up anyways, so it's really not a big deal. These clips are probably like $10 a piece on the OEM website, so we're gonna save those. She is free. Another little tip, absolutely everywhere you can, put the bolts back where they go. You're gonna have like some places where you need to do, Ziploc bags that you label or bins that you label so you know where screws go back. But for the most part, you can just put a bolt right back where it was to avoid losing it. What's up? I'm back. Okay, so my goal here is to not have to pull the engine. We're gonna be taking off this upper cowl, which means we gotta take the wipers off. All right, wipers first. It's just a little cap and a 15mm. Pop that right off. Try not to lose it, of course. There we go. And this is me going back in and remarking the top of the bolt so that we know where the wiper needs to go back on and it's aligned correctly when we do put it back on. And of course, putting the bolt and washer back where they were. And same goes for the other wiper. Nuts off. Just struggle with it until it comes loose. There we go. Got it. We've got some torque screws to get rid of. And these pins are fairly straightforward. Just a little flat blade. Get it under there. And of course they make a special tool for this. I just need to get one. And then we are on to the next plastic bit. Yes, sir. A little bit crispy. We're gonna be getting a new insulator, it looks like. Looks like our master cylinder reservoir is melted. Oh man. Back of the valve cover is melted. Vacuum lines, completely melted. The stuff I could see, like the battery box, reservoir, I already have new parts coming for all of that, which is nice. However, we'll see what else we run into as we keep tearing this thing down. Next comes the intake. Got the world's cutest vintage ratchet. PCV here if we can. It's a little crispy. Well, after much struggling with the fitting, I decided to just get the rubber off of it first. All right, intake out. And always remember to put a shop towel in your intake or something because you don't want random stuff falling in there. So now that we've seen the damage, I'm just going to begin general disassembly of the wiring harness, some of the vacuum tubes, get a lot of this stuff out of the way, stuff that I know has to get replaced. And so we're just gonna hit that time lapse. Here we go. So part of the fun with fixing cars like this, apart from the fact that it was on fire, there are also things that are aftermarket on this car that I have to figure out as well. Catch cans are fairly straightforward, where they come from, where they go, Cotton Eye Joe. But stuff like this right here, and these two wires go somewhere into the firewall. I'm gonna have to investigate that because when I switch in the new harness, it's not going to have that, obviously. All right, here we are under the car. I was tracing these tubes as well as these parts of the wiring harness down, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to see those from the top. So finally decided to lift the car. Super glad I did. So those are our vacuum for the turbo, and then there was this guy on the turbo as well, and this guy. Got all that taken off. We're gonna be able to yank everything out now. And this is honestly my first look under the car. So there's our downpipe, turbo. Everything seems to be honestly in pretty good shape. There's no huge leaks or anything. Got a little bit of goofiness with the intercooler piping. I really expected there to be an aftermarket downpipe, but there is not on this. However, we do have an aftermarket exhaust, so that's kind of interesting. Overall, not in bad shape. Even for being lowered, not too many scrapes and scratches on things down here. Okay, our crisped harness is free. You can see what was kind of under and behind the engine, but this right here, oh man, what a mess. Now, I believe in order to get this last branch undone, I'm gonna have to take the intake manifold off, and then finally we'll be able to take the big trunk of the harness down and remove it from the ECM. A little surprise I just discovered while the car was up and everything is tilted towards the driver's side. There's a little puddle of coolant forming down here, so of course I had to come up and investigate, and it looked like it was coming from this area, and I put my hand under here to feel, all right, where's it coming from? Which connection is leaking? And it's actually none of the connections. It's this little tube on the elbow. It is actually melted. It's a little crispy, and it must have made a little hole in here, so I'm gonna have to replace this tube as well.
And just removing the driver's side fender well, it seems like no matter how many screws and clips you take out, there's always one more hiding somewhere. But we got this out, not a big problem, and this is going to allow us to get the rest of the wiring harness out of the computer.
We have access. Well, after much effort, the wiring harness is 100% free, except for the two mystery wires I have to trace down. After a little bit more investigation, this blue-white wire that's been intercepted, it actually just gets clipped, pulled into the cab, and then brought back out right to where it should be. It matches up with this wire right here. And this wire goes to the starter. So my theory is somebody has a kill switch on this. If there is, chances are what I'll do is just clip this and not utilize it anymore. All right, we've dug a little deeper, pulled off an inside panel on the dash, and we found a weird little makeshift ground screw. That's kind of interesting. And the other thing we've got back in there, look at that, there's our two wires. At the moment, it seems as if they're just wire nutted together, but I'm gonna clip that zip tie right there and see if there's anything else going on. But if they're seriously just pulled into the firewall and wire nutted, I don't know. But I'm gonna get in there a little deeper. Okay, so basically confirmed. It came into the cab, was wire nutted together, and that's it. What's up? So I went ahead and clipped them out here, took the risk, took the chance, pulled them back through the firewall. I mean, maybe it was anti-theft, some kind of interlock, kill switch, but we got it out, and the wiring harness is now free to be removed, and we don't need whatever those wires were. So that makes me happy.
I finally decided I was done scraping leaves and dust and crap all over the engine, so I got in there with the vacuum and cleaned it all out. I went ahead and removed the valve cover and the intake manifold so I could get my first look inside the engine, and honestly it was really hard to tell if anything was wrong, but there was oil and fuel and gunk everywhere, and it had me a little concerned, but we got it all cleaned off, and now you can see the final product.
Well, here we are, about as clean as it's gonna get. The whole top deck is shiny and ready to accept the new valve cover. So next, we are gonna jump into the brake booster reservoir and connector. I did manage to find another connector for this. We are gonna be able to splice that in, which is really nice. What's hilarious is I spent the same for this connector, splicing it in, as I did for the entire wiring harness for the engine. About 50 bucks. Now here is our new reservoir and cylinder. I bought the whole thing because I didn't know how badly the old one would be wrecked, but honestly all we need is the reservoir. We don't even need, we're gonna need this tube, but that's literally it. Everything around it is totally fine from what I can tell. So we're just gonna swap reservoirs real quick here. And here's the new reservoir. It's got kind of a funky screw. It screws in at the beginning, I think it's kind of cool actually. But that's what the bottom of it looks like. When we pull the old one out, it just seals into the valve body on the brake booster. And I'll drop the screw real quick. All right, I've got some plastic, and I'm gonna put down one layer of paper towel to try and help catch whatever else falls out of here. Wasn't too bad. All right, same as we took it off. Just make sure we get the holes lined up. Perfect. There we go. Beautiful. And that is really exciting because this is officially the first brand new part on our journey back to getting this car running. Now, one other thing I've been thinking about off and on, freaking me out a little bit, is when the fire happened, how many fuses did we blow up, if any? I'm gonna take my continuity tester, you can hear that, and go across most of these fuses. Okay. Okay, so we got a bad one already. First one we tested was bad. Good. Okay, so I think we may only have one bad fuse, a 10 amp right here. I'm gonna double check it. Oh yeah, she's blown. So just one 10 amp fuse that blew out of that whole thing. But that's really nice. Only one fuse out of quite a few that is blown. I'll figure out which one that is. Okay, after checking the manual, I actually have a bit of good news. That fuse right there that's blown is F32. And that feeds the crankshaft position sensor, which is right down there. And it also feeds the camshaft position sensor, which would have been right about here. Now, obviously that's exactly where the fire was. And if I go over here, this is the old sensor. And as you can tell, pretty obvious why that fuse blew. Luckily, we'll have a new one on the new valve cover and we should be A-okay. I also went into the passenger side glove box and checked all of those fuses and we are okay, good to go. That's about all I can do for now as far as electrical issues go. Once the car is back together and we start it up, I will be able to use the cob and troubleshoot any codes that pop up. Another thing I wanted to mention is that at the beginning of the video, I said I'm not a professional. And while that's true, I am, to the absolute best of my ability, researching everything that I do. I am torquing every bolt to spec. I am cleaning everything. I'm making sure that I don't cut any corners. I want this to be ready to go as if I was the person driving it for the next however many years. And with that being said, the valve cover was actually kind of a fun one because Ford has a diagram for the exact spec and which bolts you should do in what order all the way around it. And it actually went really smoothly. Obviously, we're not going to know whether it leaks or not until we start the car up for the first time. However, right now, we're going to get the new wiring harness thrown in. We'll get all the satisfying clicks and get everything routed into the car before I throw the manifold back on. Now, I am also becoming increasingly concerned after the amount of oil I saw here in cylinder 1 that even though the previous owner assured me that compression was strong on all cylinders, who knows, this might need a new engine. And at this point, you know, luckily we have it cheaply enough that we can kind of absorb that in the build when we try to resell it. But once it's all back together, we will compression test everything. For now, however, we're just going to get into the wiring. Figured I'd bring you along for the satisfying bits. There's the main fuse plug. Ground plug connected back in. Now I am, as I go through, making sure to pick the easy things right off the bat. So connectors like this, plastic mounting brackets like these that go on the valve cover, all of that is set where it goes. And that's gonna really help me determine where the rest of these plugs route. Of course, I have a million pictures of everything as I disassembled it. You should always do that when you're working on vehicles, but it's just one little thing, you know, this should be your first step. That's going to help you get the loom in the right place. You know, this obviously is super easy, but especially when you start getting into all these little nitpicky plugs, knowing that the whole cable assembly is where it needs to be in the first place is really going to help you with routing everything where it should be and making sure that you don't get a wire somewhere such as in the way of the shift linkage, because obviously if that's moving around and catches on your harness, not going to be a great day. Things like this, where it's really obvious, you know, where things should go. Put these right back in the battery cover. Great, you know exactly where that goes. Yep, right here, made a mistake. This wire is supposed to be routed behind this guy, but I've already kind of got it up and over, so I'm just gonna go ahead and disconnect the radiator hose and pull it around the other side. And of course, the all-important connection to the computer. Just gonna take that out instead of trying to fight it in the case. There we go. There's one. And there's two. And we'll go ahead and get the case back on. Well, if I don't try to put it on upside down. All right, we are back under the car with a couple of connections to make. This guy right here. And this connector right here is to our boost solenoid on the turbo. And it's supposed to have a little metal connector, but the guy that sold it to me took it off, funny enough. However, I saved it from the old harness, so we should be just fine. All right, took that off of the old one, and same with this guy. Went ahead and put this one on this clip. That will get plugged back in when I put the whole vacuum system back together. All right, and you can see this little connector right here. Oh, I dropped the clip and it's stuck to the magnet on my phone case. That's pretty funny. Let me grab that off of there. Take it back up here and try to fish it in. There we go. New part time. Time for the cam position sensor that melted on the old one. It's gonna go right here. The harness install went really nice actually. Was able to find pretty much where everything goes. We're just gonna have to finish installing the intake manifold, the vacuum system, and a few other items. Got the torque wrench, the Harbor Freight Special. We'll get this thing set to 89 inch-pounds. If you've never set one of these before, pretty simple. I know it's a little hard to see on camera with the markings, but basically these are 10s of inch-pounds. These are 1s of inch-pounds. And you just rotate this handle until you get to your desired spot, which for me is right at the 90 on the 9, so it means it's 89 inch-pounds. Tighten up the bottom. Put it on your bolt. Make sure to support it. Right there, there's 89, give it a little extra test. Yep, we're good. Don't want to go any tighter than that because we will either strip out or break the plastic that fitting is in. And we can go ahead and plug in that sensor. Nice. New part. We're gonna go ahead and install our new vacuum lines for the turbo. And this is actually really nice on this OEM part. We have these little tabs holding the metal clips open on these tubes that are going to go onto the turbo itself, and all you do is yank this zip tie and it'll pull that tab off and immediately activate this clip. So that's kind of nice. Pre-unloaded, I guess. Here is one vacuum line on. There we go. Okay, that's all the way on. Okay, both of these are connected. We'll go ahead and pull our tabs. Nice, and the other one, there we go. And those are now solidly on the turbo. And that means we get to come up here and do another connector. There we go. Do this metal clip again. Alrighty, awesome. And then I guess that guy. Sweet. And with that firmly installed, we can take the cover off of our vacuum pump, plug this guy in. Nice. Jumping into the manifold install, it's pretty straightforward. Just got to make sure you put in the bolts in the right order and to 89 inch-pounds, just like with the valve cover. That way everything seats correctly and there aren't any leaks. Well, I had to do a little bit of research to figure out what they did on the old vacuum system, and I think I've got it. So as you can see on the old solenoid, they had this blocked off with just a screw. Not the greatest, but whatever. It's just vacuum. Here's the old unit, here's the new one. As you can see, this routes back to the turbo, and they had it blocked off on this one. So what we're gonna do is block it off, because I believe when you put in an aftermarket blow-off valve, you change your vacuum source. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this flush, put it on here. We'll zip tie it so it's nice and clean and doesn't look like a bolt sticking in a tube. And then we will go ahead and take our Symposer tube as the new vacuum source and attach it to this guy right here. Okay, and there we go. Okay, today's a big one. It's a gorgeous day outside. I've got the garage door open. I don't have to turn the heater on. This is amazing. But we're gonna get everything finally connected, and we are gonna go ahead and compression test the car, get it powered on for the first time since I bought it. And if compression is good, we'll go for the full start today. If not, then I got some work ahead of me, but we are gonna find that out today. All right, it is almost time for first start. I am so stoked. But first, we need to remove the fuel pump supply, which according to the manual is F56, over in the passenger side fuse module. So we're gonna remove that before we go for the first start. That way no fuel is primed automatically when we push the ignition switch. And actually one more thing, I made a mistake. This is why you should always check your checklists. There's that little hose that we've had the cup under catching all the extra coolant that runs back up to the reservoir. Just got to throw that back in really quick, add some coolant, and then we'll go for the compression test. All right, big moments, big moments. First time since buying the car that the battery is in and live. Probably help if I grab the right size socket to do that. Oh wait, am I good? I am good, yeah. I knew what I was doing. Okay. Okay, sparks, but no fire. Very important, no fire. Here you are, first time in the car with me. Oh, that's a good sign, okay. It's alive a little bit. We got a wheel in the way here. Oil change required, we know that. Driver door ajar, we know that. Headlamp fault, yes, we know that. Everything else is on. Nothing weird going on yet. We're gonna turn it back off. Okay, good sign, 91,000 miles. They didn't lie about the mileage, so that's a bonus. We are gonna go ahead and plug the compression tester into cylinder 1 and turn this thing over for the first time. All right, so you are supposed to do compression tests warm, typically, to figure out, get a very accurate compression reading while I'm swinging this thing around. But we're gonna do this one cold because I am most concerned about cylinder 1 and I wanna know right off the bat if it is lower than the rest of these. So we're gonna go ahead and get this one in here. And it should just screw in by hand. You shouldn't have to force it or anything. There we go, it's threading in, it's tight right there. Okay, and then if you haven't done a compression test before, this is the gauge. What you're gonna do is you're gonna clip the gauge in, just like you would a pneumatic air hose. If I can do this, there we go. And you're gonna turn the engine over 6 or 7 revolutions and figure out what you get. Now this car, according to the interweb, should be anywhere between 180 and 210. With cold, I'm assuming will be a little bit lower, but we'll go across the board, check them all, and see if there are any discrepancies. If they're all within like 10-15% of each other, we will go for the full start. If not, yeah, the video gets longer. We're back in the car, and I'm just gonna push the clutch in. Has no pressure anyways. And we're just gonna try to do some revolutions here and see what happens. Let's go check the pressure. All right, obviously that was not ideal. We cranked it over again a few times and it started to creep a little higher than 30, but not much at all. Basically that's cooked, unless we check these other cylinders and they read the same on a cold test. So let's find out. Almost 150 PSI there. Same reading cylinder 3 and cylinder 4, about 120. I went a revolution or 2 less, so it might've been close. Looks like we have our culprit, and it's not gonna be as easy as just replacing some wires and tubes. We're gonna have to get a little deeper into this car. So obviously cylinder 1 has a major issue, 30 PSI. We're gonna be doing some work. Yep, it is on this tiny little that we end this video. Episode 1 of this build was really cool. I'm gonna be way more connected to this car after we finish getting all into this. So if you know anybody with a spare Focus ST engine laying around, I am the guy to talk to. I will take it off your hands. Track Shark out. I will see you in episode 2 when we make this car drive for the first time.